Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to show you the whole process, and some of it's not pretty. So I want you to see the mistakes, the fixes, and how it all goes. However, if you just want to see a regular painting video from, the beginning canvas and to the end where it all goes well, I will include a timestamp so you can skip to that part. So let's get to it. So in today's video, I'm going to show you what happens when things don't go as planned. So you can see me kind of mapping out my composition. You can't tell, but I'm talking to Selah, my oldest daughter, trying to decide if I'm going to go in a vertical wave pattern or if I'm going to go directly horizontal and do my split base, split in the middle. So we decided on the diagonal wave pattern, and the base coat that I'm using, this color is kind of like a dark gray, and it just came from a previous painting that I had scraped. So one thing that you can do to save paints and save money and just try new things is if you have to scrape a painting or you have a lot of stuff left over, you can use them in future pieces, and in some cases they've ended up being my best pieces. So one thing that is important to pay attention to, and you'll see in a few minutes, when you do a base coat, first of all you want to get it fairly level, so that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to get all the excess off. But also, you can see that there's junk. There are little pieces of something in the base coat, and I'm going to have to use tweezers to pull that out. And typically that comes from, if the paint has been sitting there, it might clump up a little, or if you use Floetrol in your pouring medium, sometimes that can also get clumpy. I usually will sift my Floetrol, but in this case I was using leftover paint, and that's where the chunks were coming from. So I just remove those with tweezers and get my smooth base coat. With a split base, you want to be sure that both colors have the same consistency so that they will run at the same rate. You can test this by putting a small drop of each color on a paper or something like that, and when you put it vertical, they should run the same rate. So there are multiple ways to spread the base. Right now I'm using just a paint stick, but you can use a blow dryer to really get it full coverage and smoothed out. Sometimes you can tilt the canvas up to let the paint run and get the full coverage you're looking for. I like to spread it sometime when I do the split base. I like to spread it with a stirrer, and then I will pick it up and let it run. And you'll see that sometimes the bases will run together a little bit, and that's not really an issue because your composition will cover that as you run it over that seam. So I'm using a torch here to blow out to pop any bubbles so that they don't come through on the composition. I'm getting any junk out just so that my base is smooth and clean and ready for the next step. You'll notice here that I'm adding paint to the edges. It's really important that even as you're putting your base on, that you cover the sides completely. So you'll want to check all the way around to make sure all sides are covered, because even when you blow out the composition and it goes over the edge, if there's any canvas showing and you miss that, it'll look really bad on your finished product. Now with this base coat, I did torch it again. I noticed that there were a lot of air bubbles coming to the surface. Typically, I only torch it once when I'm on the base, but you'll see that today I ran into several issues. You'll notice I start out with blue. Typically, I like to start out with my darker colors or my opaque colors because they're a stronger foundation and they'll really show through in the final product. So you'll see that I start out with both of my blues first and work my way up through the purple and the red, and I usually end with either a white or a gold or copper. Because the gold typically is more translucent, transparent, it works better on top. It also creates more cells, but we will see how it goes. So you will notice I'm doing my red now, but you'll see that I do a white strip between the red and the copper. When it comes to gold or copper being on top, it's almost always layered over a red or a purple, and sometimes those colors can really clash or create like a brown. They can muddy. So I typically will put a white strip between them so it keeps the colors a little bit more separate and brings out the vibrancy of the color. You can see me here like planning how I'm going to blow this out. I'm trying to decide which direction and where I want to start. It's very important to figure out how you're going to blow out your paint before you do it, because I have had actually one of my previous videos where everything was blown in one direction, and thankfully it worked out, but typically I don't do that. I have them in opposing directions to where they complement one another. So here I'm going in trying to decide how I'm going to blow it out, but I'm also, this is a brand new blow dryer, so I'm trying to work with the high setting because the low setting just doesn't move the paint like I need it to. So I'm using the high setting and trying not to blow everything off the canvas. So as with every work of art, it doesn't always go as planned. And as I'm doing this Dutch pour, the colors just aren't mixing how I like it. And you can see that light blue is pooled at the top. And I really struggled with getting the top looking cohesive with the rest of the piece. So here you'll see me consulting an expert. I brought Selah to come look at my piece. It just wasn't feeling good to me. It was really pretty, it just wasn't finished, and I couldn't get it right, and I was getting frustrated. And Selah could see it too. She could see that the top was not really, they were two separate pieces. It wasn't complementing the bottom, and the bottom was not complementing the top. So we had discussed maybe bringing some more of the negative space, or we really were trying to save this piece. So I got to the point where I decided to just redo part of the bottom. And so you'll see that I re-pour the same colors in a specific spot. And I'm trying to create a vibrant branch to match the top so that it's more balanced. And you'll see how that goes. So, after much effort, unfortunately, some paintings, they just don't cut it. So this one, it wasn't what I liked. It wasn't, it was pretty, it just wasn't good enough to keep. I wanted something better, and so I was gonna try again. And the reason I'm showing you this is so that you can see how if it doesn't go the way as you planned, you can scrape it, you can reuse the paint that you scrape off, you can use it as a base, you can start over, and if you keep trying, you will get what you're looking for. So I could have just shown you this next part as one painting, but I wanted you to see the trial and error, because it is important to see that so that you're not, if I let the painting dry, then my canvas would have been used. I would have had a painting that I wasn't quite satisfied with, and it's just not always the best route to take. You'll see that I just scraped the whole painting into a cup. I'm stirring it to prepare it. I've decided that I'm going to use it for a base. You'll see that I'm letting the paint drip so I can check the consistency, and I'm adding more paint to make sure I have enough for full coverage. And I'm preparing this, stirring it in to start my base. And take two. Here you'll see that I got gray in my magenta, so I ended up having to pour from the opposite side of the cup just so that the gray portion wouldn't pour out with my magenta. So you have to be careful when you do a new base or when you pour it into a cup, it drips off the sides and can get into your other colors. Here I am torching again, just to make sure that there aren't any bubbles, or to get any bubbles to the surface, so that they don't affect the outcome of the blowout. I did let it sit for a minute just to allow it to bring any bubbles or any cells to the surface. Sometimes if you leave it, when you've laid your paints out, sometimes if you leave it for a few minutes or even 30 seconds, you'll see that some patterns, it starts to create patterns on its own before you even start the Dutch pour. Now, once I start using the hairdryer, I usually start at the end, the opposing side of a branch, It just helps me figure out which direction everything needs to go for the design that I'm going for. I never want to blow towards the branch with the paints that are lining it, if that makes sense. So you'll notice that I just blew the whole branch to the right, and I took the end, I blew the end to the other direction. So when you do that, you'll see that it creates like a twisting pattern with the paint. It turns out really cool. So the very top was missing some color. The gray swallowed it up, and you'll see that I'm doing a additional branch with the original colors. I wanted to create vibrancy in that space. It was resembling a bird to me with like a really long tail, and so the top part right here where would be a wing, and I needed the color to kind of match but also contrast with the bottom wing. And it was too much contrast. The white was overpowering. So now that I know what I'm looking for, you'll see me just mess with it to achieve the color and the shape that I have in mind. So after much thought, I just realized that this white branch was not working. So off it goes. And now just finishing it off with touch-ups. So here are the results. I love the cells and the overlapping of the different colors. I love how bright it is. And I didn't show you here, but if you look at it kind of diagonal, I see a bird, but you may see something different. Either way, I am definitely pleased. I hope you enjoyed this painting. I fought for this one.